Yo, what is happening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages? It is your hostess with the mostest. It is PKR, Pastor Keenan Riley, and we are here on People Suck, Love Them Anyways. And I am joined by my sidekick, Nicky Nick. And as always, Nick, give me some doom and gloom, my friend.
Some doom and gloom.
Give me some doom and gloom, my brother.
Well, Donald Trump had the State of the Union last night, so there you go. That's about all the doom and gloom you need.
The clip that I seen, man, like love him, hate him, whatever. I don't care. I don't have no opinion, but like the clip that I seen, man, was just like so. I had to just scratch my head a little bit because he was like, he said our country is back winning, like we're doing so much winning. It's like we're winning so much, and people are going, I don't know how to handle all this winning. It's like I don't know. It's like, can we just please stop winning? I don't know how to handle it. And I'm like. I don't even know what to say to that. Like I don't even know. I'm just like
how many times has your bank account been negative in like 6 months?
I don't know, bro. I mean, I'm just sitting there like it's not even really that. I mean, like I know that stuff's going on in the world, but I'm like, we're just sitting here talking about like I'm like I don't know how many people have really said I'm getting tired of winning. Can we just please stop winning? It's like is that the way that every American feels right now?
No, I mean that's how he feels.
Right, like maybe
in his mind he sees people complaining and he thinks we're winning. Right. Like, why are people complaining that we're winning? Like we're winning. The way I see things, we're winning. Why are people upset? We're winning.
I mean, we got again, I have no beef in politics. I could care less. I think everybody's corrupt. I heard a guy the other day say it was he's like left wing, right wing. They're both part of the same stupid bat or something, or the same stupid bird. He's like, don't trust government.
It's still the same
trust
bird
God.
That's gonna fly into a glass.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I feel that on another level. I feel it on another level, but. Yeah, I mean, like let's kind of go through what's going on in our neck of the woods right now. I mean, you're on a day-to-day basis with Iran. Like we don't know if we're going to war or not going to war. I think I read somewhere the other day that there's more planes and ships, like basically more force in the Middle East right now that's been there since like 2003. I think something like that maybe. So you got that whole situation going on. So possible. Battle with Iran. You got the whole Epstein situation that's going on that like, people are just irate that and I mean, I'm right there with you. I'm like, there's so much stuff that's coming out and you're like, you had all this information and you've done nothing, whatsoever. So you've got that whole situation. Now we're talking about aliens and UFOs running around. And it's just like, I mean, that poor woman out in Arizona is still missing. I mean, the Guthrie's, the Guthrie, the poor old Nancy. Nancy's running around somewhere missing. So I mean, it's like I don't know who's winning exactly right now.
Major news corporations. That's who's winning.
Maybe, right maybe so, man. Maybe so. I don't know. But it's and this was something that that we were going to talk about tonight, and I mean we'll get to it. But you got the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, right? Who's coming out and supporting a bill in Tennessee. Am I correct with that so far? That basically, if a woman in Tennessee gets an abortion, then she should be held accountable for murder and receive the death penalty. Am I right with that?
Or basically, they're trying in Tennessee. A bill was introduced that would basically classify abortion as homicide.
Okay.
Or homicide or murder. But Tennessee is a death. I just lost the word. Death penalty state. There we go.
Okay.
Tennessee is a death penalty state, and so technically, if you are charged with homicide or murder, the death penalty is on the table.
Right.
Therefore, committing abortion could get you the death penalty.
Yeah. And so to me, man, it's like who's winning? Like who is winning in this mix right now? I don't know. I think the world's more crazy than it's ever been, if you really ask me. And I don't know, man. Like, I don't know how people measure victories these days. And like some people are like, I just made it through the day. That's a victory. That's great. Some people have like really large goals and maybe hit them sometimes. I don't know. But I just, I watched some of the clips and I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, man, like, this is, I don't know.
It's a bleak time to live in America. I mean, I think it's a bleak time. I mean, because some of the stuff, it's got a worldwide impact, of course. We're talking about Iran. You got, the former Prince Andrew or whatever, getting arrested over in UK.
Right.
Another government official getting arrested over there because of Epstein connections. I mean, you got, I think France has like a task force dedicated to getting these people or something like that in France. And Like it's a crazy time to be alive, crazy time to live, to be alive.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, as cliche as it sounds, you know, it really does mean that we need Jesus more than ever.
I think so too, man. I think it's literally like it is that deal, man, where you're thinking to yourself like how crazy or you always ask the question, how much crazier could it get?
Mhm.
And then it's like, tomorrow's like, hold my beer. I'm about to
Right,
show
right.
you about how much crazier it could get. And I mean, it's just like we thought that COVID in 2020 was crazy.
Mhm.
And I mean,
I
now
think it
it's
was the beginning.
yeah,
The beginning
right.
of
Yeah, it was
craziness.
like it's like it just kind of it set into motion the last 6 years of insanity, man. I mean, you think about whether it's political assassination with Charlie Kirk, you think about the assassination attempt on Trump, you think about this. I mean, you think about this whole Epstein situation. You think
You
about
got school shootings happening in Canada.
yeah, yeah. I
Like,
mean, nothing
with
ever happens
yeah,
in
I know. I
Canada,
was like, you
right?
got transgender people shooting up schools in Canada.
Yeah, exactly, man. And then a man, like, here's the crazy part: Mexico, brother. I mean,
Oh yeah, we had cartels.
Puerto Vallarta. There we go.
Yeah.
I said that all
I
country.
hope you
Puerto
said that well
Vallarta,
enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
is literally on fire, like because of the cartel that's come and seized the airport because of El Mencho, somebody,
El drug leader.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. El
Killed.
cartel leader is killed, and now it's like now everybody's mad down there, and brother, I mean, it's like everywhere you look, it's a dumpster fire, and it's like you said. I think it really points to the direction of how much do you need Jesus?
Mhm.
How much do you need Him to
How
come
much do
in,
you need to focus on Jesus?
right, or just really like calm the storm in your
Mhm.
own life, man? Because there's so much that you could be a part of. Now, here's the deal with that. Like, and we can talk about this a little bit, but everybody opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one,
Mhm.
and
Hopefully.
if yeah, hopefully, if you're not careful, Nick, and you've struggled with this, I learned my lesson a couple of years back. Like, if you go interjecting opinions, if you go trying to change somebody's mind that's not ready to be changed, or try to get somebody on your level of thinking or something like that, man, you are going to exhaust
Mhm.
so much energy and peace in your life trying to go toe to toe with somebody on immigration, or trying to go toe to toe with transgenderism, or trying to go toe to toe with abortion, or trying to go toe to toe with whatever you want to put, politics, whatever you want to throw in there, man. And it's like, should we be more focused on that, or should we be more focused on literally just trying to get more of Jesus in our own lives
Mhm.
to where we can battle the own storms that we have on a daily basis?
I mean, we talk about it all the time. You know, I mean, are you spending more time on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit, whatever? You know, are you spending more time on that than you're spending, you know, praying in the Word of God, going to church, listening to, or worshiping God?
Yeah.
You know, all these sorts of different things. We talk about these bare necessity Christian, traits. You know, are you spending more time going down these, rabbit holes and fighting and arguing with people and trying to prove you're right, or even trying to prove the Bible right? You know, I mean, there's people on
Yeah.
Facebook doing that, just sitting there trying to argue and fight and fuss and complain with people,
Yeah.
one thing we talked briefly about out off the podcast, off air, we got Kirk Cameron, talking
Yeah.
about he's got some stuff going on about hell, and he's
How he perceives it.
but I mean, there's so many people that are spending so much time, effort, and energy to
Yeah.
prove him wrong, and to, it's just crazy.
I thought another Keenan Clark, who is wildly more famous than me, and he said something today that really resonated with me. He said, "Stop arguing with saved people and start preaching to the lost people." And I was like, "Man," I was like, "That's."
Are you sure that's there? I feel like I saw that somewhere today
Now I
myself.
saw it. I didn't share it, but I saw it, and I was like, "Man," I was like, "That's yeah." I mean, that's mountain moving type stuff right there. Like, we spend so much time arguing across the aisle versus hitting the streets and going and talking to people about Jesus. And it's like, and it's the stuff, man, that at the end of the day, like, I was talking to a guy the other day he said he used to be a practicing Catholic. Now he's a non-denominational Christian. And
I like the distinction you made
yeah,
there.
I know, right? A non-denominational Christian.
Well, I just meant using Catholic and then Christian.
Oh, okay,
okay.
But he said that as a practicing Catholic, that he used to, I mean, he would go through Lent, right? We just had Ash Wednesday, and in Catholicism, every Friday, it's like, they give up meat, they eat fish. It's for a 6-week period, all the way up to Easter, so on and so forth. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I used to fast, every Friday all the way up through Lent, things like that. And and he's like, and we're supposed to give up something, it's kind of like, and I said, now here's the crazy part. I said, now, where I come from in my neck of the woods, we fast too, and I said, the crazy part is that like we're both doing this for reasons that we believe are right? And we're both doing this to bring honor to what we think is right. But we would rather spend more time arguing about who is right versus taking the things that we agree on and building something towards, pointing towards the right direction, which is heaven. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I told him that. I was like, man, we have all these people out here pointing like this. It's like, and if you're just listening to the podcast, I've got my arms crossed pointing in different directions. But most of the time, it's like we spend more time like that. Like I do feel like that's why you see so many different denominations, so many different religions. I mean, it's like there's so much similarity to everything, but yet it's like because we can't agree on one certain thing, it's like, well, it's all wrong, or you're stupid, or whatever.
And I mean, and I think that's the basis for all division. I mean, it's just there's your way of doing things, and there's my way of doing things,
right?
And it depends on some people, their way of doing things is the way things have always been done.
Yeah,
I'm used to this. This is tradition. This is what the Pope told me to do. This is what the pastor told me to do.
Yeah.
This is what and when since when are we going to start talking about what the Bible told you to do anyway?
Right.
But like it's just all these things. We have this way of doing it and that way of doing it, and I think we have been conditioned to say, if it's not my way, then it's the wrong way.
Right.
Because we have these ingrained traditions, these things we grew up with, these things that we are passionate about.
Yeah.
And then we have someone that shows up on Facebook or shows up in person or shows up, whatever, and says something completely opposite of that.
Yeah.
We don't want to, we don't want to do the work or put the work in of like, okay, let me listen to this.
Yeah.
Why do you, and those similarities go out the window. Nobody cares about similarities when you're arguing with one another.
Oh, no, right, yeah.
It doesn't matter if we both believe in the same Jesus.
Yeah.
You do this and I do that.
The middle ground is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's, we have that not just in religion. You have that in politics.
Of course.
You have that in business. You have that, all over the place. This is the way things need to be done because it's how they've always been done.
Yeah.
But we neglect to see the similarities and understand that like there was a starting point, right? This one similarity that we all started at, and at some point we branched off.
Right.
This person decided to do business that way. This person decided to do business this way. This person had success with that. That person had success with that.
Mm-hmm.
But we just don't want any part of what gave them success because of what gave us success. We don't want to risk that.
It's kind of crazy because the world is a melting pot, but like we don't want religion to be a melting pot. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like we want everybody to believe and operate like we do. And if they don't operate like we do, then they're wrong. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I've been under that mindset before. Like I have no problem with telling you like that. I've been under that mindset before. It's like, it's like we do it the best. We do it the right way. We do it like I think God would have us to do it. And it's like, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you're wrong. Like whenever we started the church here, I tried to be so radical in thinking that I wanted to buck religion completely, structure completely, dynamics completely, and just live like the wild, wild west, and it's like it, and just because I was so tired of structured, organized, basic religion, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, if you do it that way, if you have service at the same time on the same day and you do this, like you're wrong. And like I was under that mindset, bro. And then I had to understand like that works for some people. You know what I'm saying? Like that actually works for some people. Some people do like that stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? Like some people do like to know that my church is going to be on Sunday at this time. Some people do like that stuff. Okay. Like, so it's not the fact that they're doing it wrong. They're doing it different. And
I mean, there's got to be something good to it in most cases, because, if there wasn't something good to it, it wouldn't attract people. It wouldn't get people so passionate.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing about it, man, where, you said something that really stuck with me. You were like, you kind of see it in everything. You were talking about religion, business, like you see this division. But I think, too, like a lot of times we as Christians allow everything to kind of creep into religion, So it's like what we've been talking, we've talked so much about politics. We've talked so much about just belief systems and standards and like stuff like that. And man, like we get like, people get so tore up over the smallest things. Like literally, like we'll tear the house down about music. It's like don't play this type of music or don't play this over clothes, over dress, over whatever, and it's like and people get so tore up and will fight you over it. And it's like, why? What for? What does it do for you? Like, and if it does something for you, fantastic. That's wonderful. Because as me and you have conversed a lot, it's like whenever you get into a relationship with Jesus, it is a personal relationship with Jesus. So what might convict Nick might not convict me. And what convicts me might not convict Nick, and Nick might look at me and be like, yo, bro, why are you doing that? And I might be like, well, because I don't feel no conviction doing it, but he might. But it could be polar opposite whenever I look over at him and be like, what are you doing, bro? And he's like, I'm doing this because I feel like I don't feel any conviction with it. Like I don't feel like God's telling me not to do it, And I feel like, Nick, that's where like we have to get under the assumption, or we have to get under the mindset of that, like, we preach this a lot. Every person's going to answer for their own relationship one day. Like, I'm not going to stand up in heaven in front of Jesus and be like, yeah, but my boy Nick, and then start pointing fingers at you. It's going to be, I'm answering for my life, my decisions, everything I've done while I've been here on earth. Or haven't done. Yeah, either or. And it's like, I'm not going to get a chance to answer for anybody else. So why in the world am I down here trying to get more people to think like me versus to look more like Jesus?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there's a lot, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, these scriptures, and I've heard people use them, use these scriptures, and I'm not going to quote them, word for word or anything,
right.
But, man, the scriptures surrounding, like, the calling out of false prophets and rebuking, Christians who say certain things or do certain things. And, it's, these, I've known people who've said that, like I'll be talking to them and they'll say this person did this, so I openly rebuked them in front of everybody, or,
right.
And these sorts of things, that get us in trouble sometimes, because it's like, we feel like we're supposed to, utilize the Bible as kind of a sword, which, I mean, you think about the armor of God, the sword of truth and all this sort of stuff, you think about that stuff.
Right.
But, it gets a little hairy.
But do you walk around looking for fights, or do you walk around prepared to fight?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a huge difference. Like, I feel like a lot of people walk around with a sword thinking, all right, who can I go slice and dice today? Versus, all right, I'm ready just in case anything comes my way,
Well, and I think the thing is, I think the mentality is, I think that they don't think they're looking for a fight. They get on Facebook and they see somebody post some kind of theology they don't agree with, and they see it as their duty to step up and say something, or rebuke someone, or, they'll be in their church service at a small group and somebody will say something, or, and they feel like it's their duty and responsibility to say something.
Right.
God has called me to, rebuke you for what you've done, and I mean, I'm not saying there's not a time and place that is correct. I mean, I just think that we have become too free with it. I think that we oftentimes get out here just blasting at everybody and everybody we see.
Oh yeah.
We start just slicing and dicing. We don't stop and think. Like, I feel like before we openly rebuke someone, that we need to go to God in prayer and say, what do I need to do? I feel conflicted here.
Yeah.
Is there something I need to do, something I need to say? Yeah. But instead we just have that emotional knee-jerk reaction.
Right. And you sent me a post the other day about Carl and Laura Lentz doing a book. And again, anybody who knows me, like I'm still a huge fan of Carl Lentz. I've watched, whenever he was big at Hillsong, like I watched sermons, I listened to sermons. I mean, there's no mistaking the passion and stuff that he had. There's no mistaking, I feel like, the relationship with Jesus that he had. Did he do things wrong? Did he fall short? Absolutely. Don't we all? Absolutely. I mean, to me, he owns the mistakes. But not only that, like, I think we're kind of at a mistake, or the people who maybe listened and idolized, it's like maybe we were at a mistake for putting him up on a pedestal, a lot of times, and being like, hey, like, this is a true man of God, blah, 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 so on and so forth. We're all human. We all fall short. But Nick sent me an article the other day, it's like, hey, they're going to put out this book, so on and so forth, and trying to help people. It wasn't even anything to do with like church or like religion. I mean, it was literally saying, hey, look, like, we made it through infidelity. This is what we done. This is what saved our marriage. This might help you too. And then you still had people openly rebuking them online, talking about, oh, well, you should never minister again, and you should never do this again, and you should never serve again, and you should never, and it's like you see stuff like that, bro. And it's like, think about people who don't know Jesus. Think about people who've never stepped foot in a church. Think about people who literally, literally might be on the fence, might be on the edge about giving their life to Jesus, trying church for the first time, maybe reading the Bible. And it's like you open that up and you see quote unquote Christians, church people, instead of being like, yo, redemption, grace, love, mercy, restoration, healing, wow, but instead going, you false prophet, you use the pulpit of God to profit, and now you deserve what like all of this good stuff, man. And you think like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and he was saying something about church, and I said, bro, church is the place to find some of the worst people sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go into Walmart expecting bad people, but church, bro, let me tell you something. Like, there's some mean, nasty, bigoted, wretched, rancid people up in church because it's like they think that their way is the right way, and it's like, and if not, then hey, you're AC/DC, it's highway to hell, baby. And I just, man, like, I don't get or understand where the mindset or the heart placement goes. Instead of cheering somebody on, it's literally like tear you down, send you to hell. There you go, that's what you deserve.
Yeah, and I think it's a difficult thing that you and I and other conversations we've had with people have struggled with finding the right answer to. Because it's like you have. I mean, when you're talking about people, things are complicated, things are confusing. Everybody's born, raised different, taught different. They interpret the Bible different,
right?
And all of these sorts of things. So it's hard to kind of nail down that answer. As to why are we like this? Why as Christians are we so harsh and judgmental at times? Why do so many people justify it through the Bible?
Right.
To say God sent me to be a sword. Does God sent me to call out false prophets and to rebuke people? And but then you get into these situations again where you have redemptive or potential redemptive stories.
Yeah.
But we cut them down, and we don't want any part of it. Kind of like we were talking about with that pastor who supported that bill in Tennessee. We've talked a lot about the death penalty and abortion.
Yeah.
How like with Christians are the first to defend unborn babies, but a lot of times they are the first ones.
We'll literally shake a torch at somebody and go, "You deserve the electric chair.
Yeah, you deserve to die."
And it's like, well, wait a minute, man. Like, we all deserve hell. We all deserve to die. Like, we all deserve the worst, man. But that's why Jesus came for, to shield us from that with his blood and with his forgiveness and with his mercy and grace. Like, if we can't accept that, then what are we truly doing this for? Like, I mean, I agree. Like, like, let's talk about abortion. Let's talk about stuff like that. But like, to literally come out and be like, yo, you took this life, now I'm going to take your life. To me, that's us playing God. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's us playing God. Now, I don't want blood on my hands. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't want to be like we mentioned, I don't want to be up in heaven and God saying, like, you are, I mean, not to say we have that direct, like I can sentence someone to die, but it's like, I don't want that, as you were saying, blood on your hands of God looking down at you in judgment day and being like, because of the actions you made, because of the words you said, you sent this person to their death a month before they were going to give their life to me.
Right, exactly. And that's where I feel like that's where we got to think about things like that. Like, that's heavy. Because, I mean, the Bible says before you were formed, before the world ever knew you, like, your days are numbered. Like, God knows. Like, God's seen the beginning, God's seen the end, right? So I know, like, we could get into this whole conversation about, like, well, Pastor Keenan, if God knows, then why did he allow, and so on and so forth. And it's like, well, if he done that, then we wouldn't be a free will creature, like the design was from the very beginning. So, it's like God knows, but yet God is so God that he allows you to, to move freely and accept his grace freely. But, to think about that, like, what if somebody had ample amount of time left on their life, but you were the one that cut it short? And it was through that, it was through you cutting it short that they never reconciled with God. And it's like, oh, well, they had time, they had opportunity. Yeah, I mean, everybody does. I get it, I understand it. But could you really sleep with yourself knowing at night, like knowing going, I took that person's life, and now they will never have the opportunity to be able to get things right.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not something that people, we talk about how there's such a lack of empathy in the world today.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The inability to see yourself or to see past your emotional state. Because when someone gets on Facebook and say, oh, I hope they burn in hell, like that's not that's emotion.
Well,
that person is angry. That person's
yeah. And let me say this really quick. Like, I'm glad you said that, because it was literally the other day that I saw a person who was once in the administration that is in the White House now, right? Dismissed himself from the administration, call out another person and tell them that they were going to feel like the drops of fire from hell on their life. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I don't know if the dude's professing Christian or not, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, bro, those are heavy words that you're putting out on social media for millions of people to see, and not only that, you're putting it out, and not only are you talking about that life, but what seeds are you planting in other people's lives who will see that?
Exactly. We don't think. And I mean,
at all.
I think that's obvious. I think everybody listening to this, I don't care if you're Christian, gay, white, black, Asian, Spanish speaking, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, people don't think.
No.
We get angry about something, we get emotional about something, we get, sad or frustrated or confused, or, we react.
Yeah.
We get on Facebook, we say, go burn in hell, or, you're evil, or you're,
right.
Whatever, we get out there and, we think, again, like I said, we don't pray first. We just react. We speak, we type, we, post, we comment, we share all that stuff before praying to God, saying, hey, what do I need to do in this situation? I feel conflicted.
Yeah.
And so we get out there and we say these things, and we don't realize the ramifications of that, because, I'm thinking even so far as, that person that you ended their life short, they may have never given their life to Christ.
Of course.
But they may have impacted someone else,
right,
that could give their life to Christ.
Yep.
Or, you're out here, spitting all this hate and vile, and, somebody else could see your comment and decide they never want anything to do with Christ.
Right.
And they turn their back away. You may not have actually killed that person, but you did send someone to hell.
Yeah.
Because of what you said, because of what you posted, because of what you shared, because, and so we've got to start, it's just, like I said, it's complicated, because, we have duties in the Bible, to call out sin, to rebuke evil, to, all these sorts of different things. But, we've got to, really just stop and ask ourselves, again, or I guess remind ourselves of the fact that we aren't supposed to do anything without coming to the Father first.
Right.
We aren't supposed to do anything before coming to God first and saying, God, make sure your heart's right before you just go saying stuff, doing stuff, making a fool of yourself,
right,
making a fool of God, because you're out here, just spewing nonsense, or, all of these sorts of things, because you're angry,
right,
because you're emotional, and so you have to be willing to, if you're listening to this, you've got to, start catching yourself. As the Bible says, take every thought captive.
Yeah.
You have to test every spirit.
Yeah.
You have to take every thought captive. You aren't supposed to be acting out of your own will, but in God's will.
Yeah.
And you have really got to start asking yourselves, if the thing you're posting, is it going to do more harm? We've said this before in this podcast countless times. Is what you're about to say, what you're about to do, is it going to cause more harm than good?
Yeah. Yeah. And people, I don't think people weigh that out before they do it.
They don't.
I mean, it's a gunslinger mentality where it's like, I'm going to post it. And then, like, if it starts getting so much negative feedback or whatever, then it's like, well, I'll go delete it. Well, it's too late. It's already out there. Like, it's already been screenshotted. It's already been shared. Like, it's already in the text groups. Like, it's, what you've said is out there. And there's nothing that you can do about it at that point. And
it's already changed people's perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I tell people all the time, like, if you're going to post whatever, I don't care. But, like, the more that you post, the more ammunition you give people against you. Like the more that you put out there, I don't care if whatever. Celebrate a new car, celebrate a new house, celebrate that stuff. Like, if you want to, that's fine. But step back and ask yourself the question, who are you trying to impress with that? Who are you really trying to get on their radar whenever you do that? If you want to celebrate, that's fine. That's wonderful. Like, that's great. But what you're doing is you're arming people with ammunition for whenever you do mess up, fall short, do something crazy, do something stupid. Like you're arming people to come back and be like, bam, 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 bam. And it's like, if you think that everybody's just going to be like praying for you, praying hands, hearts, emojis, stuff like that, you're crazy. Like you're living in a under a rock somewhere, because I promise you, like people are going to tear you up, spit you out, chew you up. Like people are going to call you a vile, worse, like you should have never been born type human being. And that's if you just like, cut somebody off in traffic or something, like heaven forbid you do something crazy. But it's like, that's the world, that's the society that we live in today. But as Christians, we have to be mindful that before we go post, before we go just tear somebody down, or before we, quote unquote, use this Bible like the sword, like it's supposed to, and we go try to chop somebody up or cut somebody down, or, stuff like that. It's like, let's step back and kind of use this Bible as a sword for my own spirit, as a sword to kind of maybe cut things out in my life, because God knows I'm not perfect. God knows that I'm far from being a perfect individual. So before, like even the Bible says that before I go worrying about that speck in somebody else's eye, I need to be worried about the log pole that's hanging out of my own eyeball. And I'm not saying that you can't be like, hey Nick, like, man, like I seen you like, do some lines the other day, like, yeah, like I'm just, pray about that before you do it next time, yeah, like
I'll pray about it.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, like I'm not saying you can't do that, but like to walk up to somebody and be like, I want to tell you right now, drug addiction is wrong in the name of Jesus Christ, and you're going straight to hell, and and all of this good stuff. And it's like, okay, that's wonderful. You told them about hell, you told them about the devil, you told them about an eternity in hell, you told them about fire, you told them about brimstone, you told them about death, you told them about destruction. But you never said anything about grace. You never said anything about love. You never said anything about mercy. You never said anything about forgiveness. You never said anything about Jesus Christ besides condemning somebody in the name of Jesus.
Right.
But my Bible says that there's no longer any condemnation in Christ Jesus. So, it's like, what are we truly doing with that sword? Are we cutting people? Are we cutting people up, or are we carving sin out of our own life, man?
Yeah, I think that's a question. We've got to start asking ourselves, being better about asking ourselves. If you're listening to this, again, we're not asking you to be perfect tomorrow. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna say something, post something, comment on something, share something that we probably shouldn't.
Right.
It's not going to give the best image of Christ. But it's just all about, as we always say, I think I was listening to Craig Rochelle, and he talks about the difference between salvation and sanctification.
Yep.
And he's saying, salvation is that instant thing. You give your life to Christ, you're instantly saved and forgiven by the blood of Jesus Christ. But that doesn't immediately make you sanctified.
Right.
Sanctification is a process. Becoming more Christ-like is a process. It takes time. It takes work. It takes effort. That's the part that nobody wants to be a part of.
Yeah.
And if somebody isn't perfectly sanctified after they are saved, we want to beat them down. You should be sanctified. You gave your life to Christ. You're a new creation. You shouldn't be still doing this. You shouldn't still be struggling with that. And I want to tell everyone listening to this that is a wrong mentality to have.
Right.
If you're looking at someone who gave their life to Christ and they made a mistake and you condemn them for that,
right,
that is going to leave a bad impression on that person, to say the least.
Of course.
It's going to hurt them. It's going to beat them down. It's going to add to the guilt, shame, and regret that the devil is already pouring out on them.
Yeah.
And, we can't, as we say all the time, Christians have got to stop doing the devil's work for him.
Right, absolutely.
We've got to stop doing the devil's work for him. We've got to start showing people grace just as God showed us grace. We've got to start showing people mercy just as God showed us mercy.
Yeah.
We have to understand that, salvation is a one-time, bam, awesome, amazing event, but sanctification takes time.
Yeah, it's a process.
It's a process. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes energy. It takes these things in order to become who God has called you to be. We make mistakes every single day.
Yeah.
But we can't let, again, as we say all the time, we can't put our expectations on other people and not be disappointed.
Oh,
true. We're going to put our expectations, you should be here. You should be doing this. You shouldn't be struggling with that anymore. You should believe this. You should talk like this. You should pray like this. We put our expectations on someone who, our spiritual walk, we talked a little bit about this last week, we may be farther ahead in a spiritual walk than that person is.
Yeah.
And we can't expect them to be where we're at without going through what we went through. And because of what we went through, we should show a lot more grace and mercy to people than we do.
Yeah, true statement. As a great rapper by the name of Ice Cube once said, "You better."
I don't know about great.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's up there, bro. He's definitely top 20 all time for sure. But he said, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. And yeah, I mean, I have no truer words have been spoken. Like before you go say it, before you go do it, before you go post it, before you go do whatever, check yourself. And then, like, if you check yourself and you're like, yeah, I still think it's a good idea. Okay, like whatever. But I feel like most of the time, if you check yourself and then you kind of step back and you go, yeah, that's probably not going to change anything. I'm probably just going to go on about my business and have a good day, type situation. I feel like that's where you're going to end up at. And definitely, you reserve a lot more peace that way, for sure. So we thank you guys for tuning in so much, man. I feel like that. I feel like these short, condensed episodes, Nick, like I feel like they do good, man. I mean, I feel like we cover a lot, and we just kind of like hit them with the 1-2 punch, man.
We talk fast. I hope nobody listens to this on like 1.5 or 2 times speed.
Yeah. If you're doing that, it's like yeah, type situation. So, but we thank you so much for tuning in. We thank you so much for supporting the podcast, for hitting the download button, and just keep telling people, man, about People Suck, Love Them Anyways. And until we see you again, we love you so much, and be blessed.